I'm the goddamn supervillain. You are an internet user. You probably have mastered the art of searching useless shit on the internet. But well, you're also a horror fan. To be specific, a fan of the Scream franchise. And well, let's say if you're of a younger complex, you're most likely on Instagram searching up your favorite killer, GhostFace. And if you did, you're probably thinking, wow, there's a ton of fucking horny bastards in this site. But aside from that, you were also thinking, huh, what if I could dress up as my favorite killer? And on that moment, a light bulb turned on in your fucking ape head. And you started frantically searching up on YouTube's tutorials on how to dress up as him. And you probably clicked on mine. And if you did, you're probably regretting it. But I assure you, you clicked on the right fucking one. Have a look. Yup. You looking at that? That's me. And that's my fucking robe right there. And if you follow the steps on this tutorial correctly, and don't get fucking lost like a child, you'll do an even better job. Well, for the sake of calling this a full-on cosplay tutorial, instead of just a replica robe tutorial, I'm going to quickly run over the basic aspects of what you need to completely recreate the look of Ghostface. First, the boots. For the boots, you can just choose whatever you want really, as long as it is of a darker color. Because even after 20 years of the first Scream movie being out, we still haven't figured out what fucking boot was used on the film. We've only recently have found out the brand that was actually found on some fucking stupid ass Blu-ray of a sitcom or whatever, a romance. And it is Reebok. A really vintage pair of Reeboks. And yeah, if you don't have the exact one by a 1 in a million chance, you can just use any boot that has like a dark brown, gray, or black collar, because I'm sure there's not going to be some fucking nerd going up to you and being like, oh wait, that's not the same brand. Second, the undergarments. Black t-shirt and black jeans. Literally. Just black t-shirt and black jeans. Go for it. Third, the knife. The knife used in the original Scream was a Buck 120. It's a hunting knife made for skinning deer or buck. It's still being made to this day, but I honestly wouldn't recommend fucking buying them because, like, it's a whole fucking pain in the ass. It's really expensive, and like, it's a real knife, you know. You can't bring them into conventions, and if you like try to unsharpen them as a countermeasure, it's gonna look really fucking stupid and goofy. So like, yeah, don't bother. Oh yeah, and also you have to like make sure it's the right type, because like the ones used in Scream were like some vintage ones that were made by hand, and the new ones being made are like machine made, you know. So it's a whole fucking ordeal to make sure you get the right one. So I honestly would just go ahead and buy a replica one on Instagram. There's some really good replica knife makers in there, and I'm gonna link them on the description. But in case you're not American, or second, you're dirt fucking poor like me, you can just go in the description and there's gonna be a link to a 3D model ready to print of a vintage original screen accurate whatever the fuck buck 120, and best of all, it's for free. A real hunk of a fucking man decided to like model a really accurate knife using reference and just made it free for the public. How nice of him. Maybe you should follow his Twitter and Instagram or some shit. Fourth, the mask. The original mask used in Scream was a Generation 1 Fearsome Faces Peanut-Eyed Ghost mask by Fun World, yada yada yada, you know the one. And if you know that, you also probably know it is expensive as shit. And for no reason at all, apparently. Because like a bunch of fucking assholes on eBay just keep jacking up the price, and some gullible retards just keep buying them. So, well, whatever. If you are lucky enough to have one, good for you. And if you're unlucky enough to have to buy one to be accurate, tough shit. But if you don't mind so much about accuracy and just want a ghost face mask in a good quality, well, I have the next best thing for you. For people like me who just can't afford an old mask and shit like that, or in general just aren't like stupid rich, you know, the mask I recommend is this one, the AliExpress ghost face mask. Yeah, I know. Recommending a off-brand product. Oh my. I'm sure the nerds are screaming at their monitor just like, no, you can't do that. You're gonna make Fun World lose money. And to that I say, well, fuck you. Sue me. I don't care. It's way better than spending a load of money on buying an old mask who's gonna be the same quality as this one. So, yeah. Despite what most people tell you about these masks in the community, they are indeed really high quality. And they only need a really minimal amount of work once you get them to turn them from good to great. And what I mean by that is I bought one of these masks, and when I got my copy, it came in a really small plastic bag. And because of that, it was all distorted, and because of the heat inside it, the glue from the eyes holding the eye mesh was all fucking like melted and shit. It was really disgusting. And yes, just like most influential people in the community will tell you, it smelled like shit. But the key thing about all these bad aspects of the mask is that they're all reversible. First thing you're gonna do when you get yours is remove the eye mesh. Don't throw it away. You're not a troglodyte. Just keep it aside. It's a good mesh. Then you're gonna hit the mask with a hairdryer. That is gonna reshape it and take all the malformities away from being in that plastic bag for so long. Next, you're gonna get that bitch and dunk it in a tub of water with detergent. And you're gonna scrub it with a toothbrush until it's squeaky clean. Not only is this gonna remove all the bad smell, but it's also gonna make it clean from the dirt from the Chinese factory it came from. Okay, so next, you're gonna remove all the glue gunk inside the eyes of the mask. For that, you're gonna use some WD-40 lubricant on a rug or whatever it fucking works for you, and scrub that shit off really hard. Don't ask me how it works, because I really don't know. I'm not a scientist. It just fucking does. It's what I used. And when you're done cleaning your mask, all you're gonna need to do is put back the eye mask, which I assume you have cleaned it also because you're not stupid. And to do that, most people recommend you use glue. But honestly, I wouldn't recommend that shit because at some point that glue's gonna fall off again, you know? So what I did for mine is I took a black thread and needle and I sewed it back on the mask, hiding the thread using the black rims around the eyes. And you don't need to sew it full circle around the rim. You just need to do a few specific hold points on the rim so that the eye mesh is secure but also doesn't look like shit, you know? So yeah, after you're done doing that, you're gonna have yourself a really fucking great mask, and you just need to do whatever your heart pleases, you know? Put some fucking blood on it, put scent, vanilla, so it smells like the original if you're that fucking nitpicky. And what I recommend you put on it is the Velcro on the tassels so that you can attach it to a robe in the future. So yeah, go ape shit because it's a mass-produced mask and it's really affordable. Fifth, the voice changer. Honestly, this is really optional and I wouldn't press you if you like didn't get one because I almost forgot to film this fucking part. It's so forgettable. So yeah, I just remembered it existed because I found a listing for the exact same one used in the movie on AliExpress also, but it's not the same color. So if you're going to buy it, you're gonna need to repaint it and gut it to or whatever to put some voice lines, whatever the fuck you want to do with it. But it's optional. You don't need it. Trust me. Next. Number 6. The long-awaited and original focal point of the video. The robe. I will go into deep details on how to make one and why you'll need to make one. Because I believe that everybody who gets out of this video should be able to make one. Because it is only a simple sewing job and there's not much skill required to do so. I was able to do that alone and you should too. In fact, I believe that when you're done with this video and if you actually try to pursue this, you'll make an even better one than I did. Let's get into it. This tutorial will be separated into 3 parts. The first one will be the fabrics used, the second one will be the materials, and the last one will be the aforementioned rope tutorial. Materials. The first one, and most important of all, is a sewing machine. I wholeheartedly believe that you should try your hardest to get one, because trying to sew a robe by hand not only is going to be a pain in the ass, but by the end it's going to look really terrible. No, literally, it's going to look fucking terrible. It's going to start ripping at the seams and it's going to last like 2 weeks tops. So invest in a sewing machine, or try to nag your grandma for one, whatever works. The next item you'll need to get, and the second most important of the list, is the printed pattern for the robe. I'll put it in the description. It is free. I made it. The only description I'll give is that it was made to my size. I am about 1 meter and 85 centimeters tall, and I weigh about, let's say, 80 kilos. So if you don't match that description, I recommend you try to search some fucking tutorial on YouTube on how to scale down or scale up the pattern, because I really don't know how to do that, but I know there are ways to do it. But when you're going to resize the file, you need to keep in mind some key reference measurement points so that you can better recreate the look from the film. The first one is the bottom of the robe. Without any alterations such as spikes or squares, the bottom of the robe should be at the same height as your ankles. So adjust the height of the torso as you see fit until it reaches your ankles. The next one is the width of the torso. This one, unlike the height of the torso, I recommend you don't adjust, because in the movie they made the robe really wide as to make it really loose and hide the figure of the person. So even if it's big on you, it's just a robe doing what it's intended to do. So I don't recommend you change it. But if you do, change it sparingly. The next measurement are the gloves. The gloves I did for the pattern are my biggest regret, because I didn't look too much on how to make a good glove pattern. Essentially what I did is I took my hand, put it down on a paper, and traced it down with a pencil. After that, I enlarged the whole thing by 1 centimeter and squared off the entrance of the glove to make it loose and wide. After I did all that, I made vertical cuts all the way through at each webbing of the fingers. After that, I spaced out each part side by side by 1 centimeter. Then I glued it all back together and did adjustments so it would look natural. I did all this because the gloves in the movie are really loose. So to replicate that, you need to make a glove that can fit you well, but be loose at the same time. If you find a better way, please do use it. But if not, you can use mine. Now, the last measurement. The one I think makes or breaks a robe. The measurements of the drape. When you have finished the arm, your drapes are going to be hanging out of a loose sleeve. And accounting with the slack of the arm, the longest drape needs to be at the same height as your knee. This is it. This is the measurement. You need to make sure that with the loose sleeve being attached to the drapes, the longest one is at the same height of your ankle. This is a really important detail, and one I think you should take the time to resize to make sure it works on yours. Just fucking do it. Don't be lazy. So yeah, print that shit out, cut it out, and fucking proceed. Another material you're gonna need for this is foam. EVA foam, to be specific. You'll need it because for the hood, there is a inner foam piece that is used to hold its iconic shape. So get it. But beware, Depending on the thickness of the foam you get, it will shape how your hood will look. What I mean by this is the thickness of the foam matters. Take a look at my robe, for example. You see how it's really rigid? Yeah. It's because I used a foam of a thickness of 1 centimeter. So, if you like this shape, you can buy the exact same one. If you want a less rigid one, buy a lower thickness. But also be careful because foams may vary from one another. So the thickness may be the same as mine, but it may react differently. So experiment. The next item you'll need is a black polyester thread. I chose a polyester thread because they're mostly used for clothes that are going to be under a lot of stress. So this is the one you'll need to get. And the next one, related to the topic, is a disposable thread. This one doesn't need to be polyester. It doesn't matter the price or the color, because this one is only going to be used for holding the fabric together when you're going to sew it on the machine. So get whatever you feel like. What you'll also need is a fabric scissor. You don't want to cut your fucking fabric and make it look like a used rag. So get a good scissor for cutting fabrics, of course. Next thing is Velcro. To make sure your mask is secure to the hood, you're gonna need to use a Velcro. But beware, when using Velcro, depending on the type of Lurex fabric you're using, the Velcro might stick to it and make it all fucked up. So if that's the case, you might want to consider using press-on buttons, or pressure buttons for that matter, because I'm sure they're going to work better for the fabrics you're going to use. Another thing you're going to need is a tape measure for measuring your body in case you need to make adjustments to the robe. Another thing you're going to need is a black pull string. For which type? Honestly, it's your preference because it doesn't really matter that much as long as it works and is long, you know. So, yeah, make your choice. Choose whatever you want or feels good. Yeah. Well, apparently there is a site that actually sells a screen accurate pull string for the hood. But I couldn't actually see how the fuck it is. So I can't tell you exactly how to make one or which one it is. You can go and try and bug him about it, but don't hold your breath. I don't think he'll respond. Next thing is chalk. When you're putting the pattern on the fabric, you want to outline it with something visible. You can get chalk, yes, it works, but in case you're using a, let's say, stretchy material, like a lycra or spandex fabric, what I recommend you use is a correction pen. You know, the ones with like white ink. Yeah, those ones. The method I used for mine was I would spam the fabric with little dots until the outline was visible. After you're done with that, you just need to cut out the fabric, leaving all the white dots behind. And the last item is just sewing pins. Yeah, really simple. You're not gonna hold the fucking fabric with your hands, so just buy them. They're not that expensive. Fabrics. The original type of fabric used in the original Scream movie was Lurex. Lurex is a type of fabric that is woven with a reflective fiber, and this is what it allows it to sparkle. Now, that's the definition of Lurex, but there are multiple different types of it, and depending on which one you choose, it will designate the difficulty of sewing this robe. Of the main types I know, there are three main ones. The first one is the one you want to avoid completely, no matter what. It's those really translucent Lurex fabrics that you can see your whole fucking hand through. Don't even bother with them. No matter how much you double layer that bitch, you're still gonna see through them. So just skip them. The second one is the medium transparency Lurex fabric. They're mostly made out of polyester fibers, and they're kinda see-through. If you shine a light through them, you'll see your hand. Just barely. They're mostly used for dresses and that type of shit. So more often than not, they're double layered. And that's why I don't recommend using this. Because I made mine from this type of fabric, and I regret it completely. Not only is the Lurex really bad quality, but sewing two layered fabrics is a fucking pain in the ass. It took me a whole month just to finish this shit, and it wasn't fun. So if you can avoid it, please do so. The last one, and the best one, that is even used by replica robe makers, is the cotton Lurex. This one is harder to find, but if you go on Google and search cotton Lurex and go on Google Images, you'll most likely find them. It's really not that hard. They're more expensive, but I would honestly recommend it because not having to sew two layers of fabric is a godsend. And in the end, it will just make a way better quality product. So yeah, make your choice. Okay, now onto the tutorial. Once you're done getting all the materials and the fabrics, you've printed out the pattern, you're good to go. It's time for sewing. But first, I'd like to share with you a technique I use for precise sewing. This is gonna greatly reduce the amount of errors you commit and the amount of times you want to shove a knife in your throat. So listen closely. Okay, so you're gonna start sewing, right? Sure. You first get your two pieces of fabric you want to sew together, and you line them up. But wait, this fabric is sticking over. You can't have that. It's gonna look shit. So you get this shit and put it in place. Line them up. Don't leave it fucking crooked, because when you sew it like that, it's still gonna be fucking horrible. It's not like it's a magic machine. You make the magic happen, so be careful. When it's all lined up, then you get your fucking pins and pin this shit down. This is not how you pin, but it's a fucking illustration, so whatever. When it's done, when you're done pinning it in place, and there's no edge sticking over or looking horrible, then you get your disposable thread and you do a quick sewing job by hand around the whole thing until it's all secure. leave about like uh 1 Pepsi can of thread sticking out of each end, so that even if you like accidentally pull the fucking thing, it's not gonna all come to apart, you know. So when you're done putting all that together and you remove the pins, you're gonna have your 2 pieces of fabric stuck together in the perfect way for sewing. Yeah. Now I know what you're thinking. This seems like a lot of work for sewing 1 piece of fabric. And to that I say, shut the fuck up. I'm gonna laser eye you, you fucking bitch. Because sewing is not about doing it faster, it's about doing it right. Sewing is a 70% preparation, and 30% actual fucking sewing. So, trust me, the amount of time you'll waste doing this is gonna save you a lot of fucking time redoing this fucking shit, cause the seams are all terrible. So yeah, do it, don't do it, make your choice. Your fucking robe, I don't care. Okay, now that we got all the preparations and explanations out of the way, let's get into the actual fucking sewing job. The first piece of the pattern that I recommend you start with is the torso. Not only is it going to be a great practice job for beginners, but it's really simple because it's just going to be straight lines, those being the shoulders and the sides. So you're not going to have a really hard time doing this. So yeah, line the edges, pin them down perfectly, sew it by hand with the disposable thread, and remove the pins and pass it through the machine. And repeat that until it's all done. And then you're gonna have a finished torso for the robe. Hooray! So the last thing you need to do for the torso is a finishing detail. It is the V-neck for the pull strings from the hood, you know. I already put on the pattern the measurement for cutting. It's about 14 centimeters, not accounting for the 1 centimeter slack for sewing. So just cut it out to about this point. Don't actually cut this in this way like an asshole. I just put that there so you can know where it ends. So just cut it out, and you're gonna have a slit on the front of your torso. And when you're done with that, you're gonna fold the edges of the cut inwards, and you're gonna sew them like this. So on the sides here and right here, so it doesn't like rip and shit. So it should go from looking like this to this. Way better. So yeah. After you're done doing the torso, you're gonna wanna go do the arms. For each arm, you want to prepare a drape piece and an arm piece. So you'll get the drape piece and align it with the back of the arm piece, making sure that the longest drape is by the side of the lettering. because this is where it's going to attach to the shoulder of the torso. And the longest drape is always by the side of the torso, not far from it. So after you're done aligning the drape with this edge at the back, you're going to want to pin it down, do the disposable stitching, and sew it on the machine. Now, I can hear some people asking, why not just align all of the edges, including this one at the bottom, and sew all together? Well, you can do that, but if you do, you're not going to be able to do the accessibility slit easily. And what this slit is for is accessibility. You can put your fucking hand through it and use your phone with it. You're not gonna need to try and make the fucking phone work with the glove. It's gonna be easier, trust me. And plus, you can hide shit in there on the sleeve. So that's a plus. So yeah, after you're done sewing this drape on the back, now you're gonna attach this part to here, the part with the drape attached. And you're gonna make sure that when you're sewing, you do not sew this part right here. Sew all the rest, but not this one, so you can have the accessibility slit. So yeah, do that for both arms. And remember, because you're going to sew this from the inverse, this arm, that's going to be, if it was going to be your left, is going to now be your right. So just be mindful of that. After you're done with the arms, you're going to want to go to the gloves. The gloves are a much more complicated shape to sew. So if you follow these steps, you're going to have a much easier time. When you're passing the pattern of the glove to the fabric, outline them with whatever you choose, that being chalk or the correction pen. When you've done that, instead of cutting them at the lines like the other patterns, you're going to want to go and cut it square around the glove outline. It doesn't need to be really big, but enough so it gives you leeway. When you did that, you can cut it out. And make sure to cut a second piece on the same size. With that done, you'll have both layers of the glove. Line them up and pin them together. After you've done that, you can sew with the disposable thread around the lines of the glove. And when it's all secure, remove the pins and pass it through the machine with the excess still on. When you've done all the sewing you need, you can remove the excess. Not only is this going to be much easier to handle, but it's going to be really forgiving in the machine. Now, sewing the gloves to the arms. For that, it's going to be a bit more complicated to explain. So I prepared a visual representation of what you'll need to do. The sleeves and the glove are different sizes. And so that they can fit, you're going to have to compress the fabrics into one size. For that, you're going to get the arm sleeve, and with a disposable thread, you're going to sew all the way around the rim. And one thing, the drawings I made are in reverse. When you're actually sewing, every part it's going to be on the inverse. So just keep that in mind. This is just a visual representation of what you'll need to do. After you've passed the disposable thread through all the rim of the arm sleeve, you will attach the glove On the inverse, again, by the seams, connecting the seam holding the drapes to the bottom seam of the glove. And for the seam on the thumb, you're gonna connect it to the bottom. I mean the top. You'll know where the top of the sleeve is because when you stretch it to the max, you're gonna see where the top is, of course. So just do that and find the fucking top and attach the glove the right way, not like this, or it's gonna look stupid. After you've done that, you're gonna make a knot on the disposable thread going around the rim of the sleeve and tighten the sleeve until it matches the circumference of the glove. When you've done that, you're gonna sew a disposable thread, another one, holding the sleeve and the glove together. You can then remove the first one. After you've done that, you again will tie a knot on the disposable thread and tighten until both pieces of fabric are all scrunched up and all the same circumference. But remember, don't tighten too much because you'll still need to pass your fat hand through that fucking hole in the glove. When you're done with all that, there's still one more final step to preparations. You'll need to make sure that the waves are even all throughout the sleeve. What I mean by that is that if one place has less waves than another, it's gonna look awful. So to make sure it's all even, you'll need to pull the fabric and drag it around to the other side until it's all even looking. You won't need to do it that much because you already separated the perfect amount to each side by pinning the seams of the gloves to the utmost bottom and the utmost top of the sleeve. So there's equal amount of fabric to each side. So all you'll need to do is distribute equal amounts between all halves. When you're done with that, all you'll need to do now is do a final stitching by hand with disposable thread to secure it all in place. How you'll do that is by sewing the waves to one another like this. This is gonna make sure that they don't move and don't get out of shape. Always interconnecting them to the next one so that they don't move. I hope you understand this. I'm not that good at fucking dialoguing. So be careful. After you finish doing this and found the right amount of leeway for your hand, make another knot so that it won't dissolve and pass the fabric through the sewing machine to finish it off. Now, I know it may seem scary to use uneven fabric on a sewing machine, but trust me, domestic sewing machines are more powerful than they look. Mine was used before me to sew an entire couch made out of leather, so don't be afraid to use yours for this. It will most likely handle it like a breeze. After you're done attaching the glove to the sleeve, all you really need to do now with the arms is attach them to the torso. For that, you will only need to do a simple sewing job in the form of attaching the sleeve by the inverse to the socket of the arm and do a simple job of attaching them with pins and then with disposable thread. And you'll have to make sure that the bottom seam of the arm is correctly aligned with the bottom seam of the torso. And so forth with the top of the sleeve being aligned with the top seam of the shoulder. When you've done all that, you can secure the stitching in place on the machine and your arm will be done. Just don't be stupid and fucking sew it in reverse or some shit. I did that before and it was not cool. After you're done cutting out the foam to the shape of the pattern, you'll want to grab the foam piece and using the foam allowance lines on the pattern, you'll want to align it with the center of the fabric. But remember, the foam should never pass the line because the foam allowance serves to accommodate the thickness of the foam. And one more thing, depending on what side you use to accommodate the foam and its stitching, will designate if the side will be the inner piece, because the inner piece of the hood is where you're going to hide the seams holding the foam with the Velcro that is going to attach to the mask. And to demonstrate this, I made a little diagram to make it easier to understand. This is the outside. This is the inside of the hood. Right here we have the Velcro. And this is the fabric, as demonstrated here. The Velcro and the fabric are in the inner part of the hood, where you put your head in and where the mask is going to attach to the Velcro. Here is the foam. All of this is going to be attached together with the sewing, preferably done by hand, because I don't think a machine could handle sewing through foam. Well, after you've done that and secured the foam with the Velcro to the inner part of the hood, comes the next step. You're going to sew the curves of the hood on each side. And then when you're done with that, you're going to pull the outer part and sandwich it with the inner, like this. Here you have it. Both parts have been sewed to the curve. This one too. And now you pull it over the top where there is the foam and the Velcro attached, and it's gonna sandwich between it. When you're done with that, to finish the hood, all you'll need to do is close it up at the base and sew it again a few centimeters up that are already marked on the pattern to make the upholstering cave. When you're done with that, the hood is basically finished. So yeah, all there's left to do is attach it to the torso of the robe. To attach the hood to the torso, we're gonna use the same technique we used to attach the glove to the sleeve. But differently from that, where we both scrunched up the sleeve and the glove, on this one, the only thing that's gonna be scrunched up is the torso, like this. The hood will remain the same size. You'll only need to scrunch up the torso so that it can fit the circumference of the hood. And there's a specific way they sewed down the waves on the torso. They were going outwards at each direction, like this. If you can see it correctly. So yeah, when you're doing yours, do the same technique. Sew it with a disposable thread, the neck of the torso that is, then scrunch it up to fit the circumference of the hood, and adjust the waves so that they look even all throughout. And don't be scared of making these waves be less in quantity but higher in volume, you know? Like, they're bigger but there's few, because you need them to be noticeable. So, yeah, one thing that will help with this is making sure the edges of the hood are pinned down to the edges of the V-neck of the torso, the one you made, right? And that the seam in the back of the hood aligns with the utmost back of the torso. I made a guideline on the pattern of the back of the torso so that you can mark where the middle of the torso is. So that should help you with it. So after you've done all that, all you really need to do is get another piece of disposable thread and make sure all the waves are secure in place, just like you did before with the gloves. Going, 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 going all the way until it's done. And there we go. You can tie it to itself at the ends to make sure it doesn't fucking move. Then you just pass it through the machine and you're done. After you did all that, you essentially finished your Scream Replica Robe. Congratulations. If you did it correctly, it's better than mine and of a high quality. Now, all you'll really need to do is put the pull string through the pull string cave on the hood and cut out the little fucking fangs or points at the end of the robe, you know? Now that is a bit complicated because those points at the end of the robe are kind of like the Mandela effect of horror cinema. Everybody swears they know how they're done, but they're all different in the end. So honestly, it's your preference. Just do whatever you feel works best. So yeah, have fun. So with parting words, I would just like to say that if you have any questions about the robe, any difficulties on sewing, or just generally tips you need to get started, make sure to hit me up on Instagram. I will answer, even if it takes some time, I will eventually. I'm not like one of those assholes who is like, oh, if you have a question, hit me up on insert social media. And when you actually fucking try to ask a question to them, they just ghost you. So yeah, hit me up, ask whatever you need. Oh, and yeah, even if you don't have a question and you just want to show me your progress, please do. I would really love to see that somebody is actually making something using this tutorial I made. It would be really meaningful to me. And yeah, remember, cosplayers do it best. Also, one more thing. Fuck MichaelMyers.net, fuck GhostFace.co.uk as a group and a website, and fuck Screaming Ghostface Collectors Group as a whole. All you rich, balding, old bastards can suck my dick.